everyone.
Hello and welcome everybody to a wet Silverstone. My name is Morgan with Cleveland Beamer Sim Sports, and this is the Sunday GTD Challenge with Dark Helmet Racing League. Right now the drivers are queuing up for practice, or rather practice qualifying, and it's going to be an interesting one. Wet practice session here, moving into a wet qualifying, and then we are going to have a sprint race and then a feature race. So let's hop aboard and see who's doing what. Let's see, we have Adam Novotny here on his outlap. Drivers in this qualifying session are going to be given 2 chances to set their best time, and we have a huge spread of drivers for this wet race. These wet races are not everybody's favorite, so thank you everybody who decided to jump on the grid and try your luck. We really appreciate it, and this should be some excellent action. As Adam goes down the hangar straight here. Still on this outlap rather. Silverstone, a huge track, and I think it's very appropriate that this time of year it is a wet session. Oh! And as Adam gets ready to plant all the power for a good run down the start-finish straight, gets a handful of oversteer there. That's not going to help him, but that's why you have 2 laps to set your best time. Well, while he goes and sets in a banker lap at this stage, let's see who else is on a tear. I see Ricky Renner in the Porsche setting all kinds of purple sector times here. So let's hang on with Ricky. Yeah, Ricky absolutely flying in that first sector. Not the fastest of all, but very, very close. Fastest of all is going to go to Jacob Elliott, setting a 15.8 sector 1. Ricky Renner at a 16.1. And Jacob Elliott with some monster sectors here. Briefly had the fastest second sector until that was taken away by Ricky here. And I'm just going to keep an eye on these sectors. And Ricky just taking it so gently around the corner there. That is definitely a high commitment corner, and when you get it wrong, you will be sliding for a long time. Ricky still sitting the lap charts afire here. Fastest of all in the second sector, fastest of all in the third sector. Yep, and fastest of all in the fourth sector, and just one more to go. And Nathan Nickerson at the top of the charts provisionally, but again, we're going to stay on board with Ricky because he may have something to say about that lap. And Jacob going to the top of the charts here. And there goes Ricky Renner, currently in provisional pole, dropping a 2:17.1. And this lap board is on fire right now. Right now we have Ricky Renner P1, Jacob Elliott P2, and Rich Hibbs P3. Rich Hibbs setting the fastest of all, Sector 4. Just taking it ever so gently. Oh. The car is moving all over the place. My goodness. And that's going to do it for Ricky Renner. I see he is in the pits. Jacob Elliott still making a charge for that pole position. Currently setting personal best sector times. It's gonna be close here, folks. Not far behind, Rich Hibbs on the chase as well, also setting personal bests. And unfortunately unable to hold on to it. Looks like Richard went for a little landscaping there. Back on board with Jacob, and Jacob says, nope, that is all I have, going back into the pits. And Richard going around the start finish. Looks like he is going to keep that 4th position. I'm seeing a lot of our drivers have gone to the pits. Ooh, and just caught Greg there with the little slide in the Mustang. And Ninja Phil himself putting it on the 3rd position for the grid. Nice lap from Phil, 2:17.9. And we have a closely packed field. P1 and 2 only 0.2 from each other. P3 and 4 separated by 0.05 of a second. And Nathan looks like he will move up as well into P5. Then I take a look at P6, Richard Wishon, Logan Key, Greg Prochnow, and Adam Novotny all separated by just 0.2 of a second. Add in Nathan Nickerson and P10 and Tyler Hessling in, where's he at? P12, as well as Brandon Dooley. And actually, Brandon Dooley's in P12, and that is positions 6 through 12, separated by 0.6 of a second. I think we're going to have a lot of battles here. And it looks like qualifying is finished. And we are just waiting for the session to switch over to the grid, where drivers are going to have 2 minutes to change their set.
Everybody. We'll have a 15-minute sprint race, a 5-minute warm-up, and then a 40-minute feature. So hang out if this one doesn't go the way you planned. Good luck, guys. Have fun.
And that is one of the admins, Brandon Dooley. Brandon back from a week or so long road trip. Nice to see him back. So as I was saying earlier, once the qualifying session ends, the drivers have 2 minutes to change the car setup to their sprint setup, get situated, and we will get rolling. And
reminder that green is on the leader.
Mike 2.
And we are now underway. Short pace lap here as we line up for the green. I can see and hear that rain's still coming down. And some of the drivers using all the track. And here we go. Oh goodness, and drivers fighting for traction. And I gotta tell you, that Porsche may have started on slicks.
Just curious, I thought green was on me.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Whoa!
It is.
Big crash. Everything kind of happening at once here, folks. And we will catch up to that crash in just a minute. Right now, Jacob Elliott in P1 with Richard Wishon P2, Logan Key P3, Nathan Nickerson P4, and Greg Prochnow. The rest of our top 5. And that was a whole lot of chaos.
So are we going to restart this race, or what are we doing?
Keep going.
While these guys are figuring out what is
Not really
what.
way to restart.
It was on slicks, so
No, he even said that he didn't go.
he didn't, but he was also on slicks.
Yep, and that does appear to be the case. Sliding all over the place. Adding to a little bit of the confusion. And then after the green flag, a little bit of chaos. I'm going to catch up to Phil here, see what happened to Phil. Phil just getting a little bit of a tag. And this just causes a whole bunch of cars to have to take evasive action. Phil getting back on the trap, so is Rich Hibbs, and not sure who that was in the Mercedes, but we kept things moving on. Further ahead, that's the same incident. And something has happened to Adam Novotny. Ooh. Yep, getting a big handful of oversteer at Beckett's. Further ahead, even more action I'm still catching up to. Philip Scott. Going around the outside here into Club, and unfortunately getting a little bit of help being flipped around here. My goodness. And I think we are now up to live action. Caught the highlights there as we go through the field. Definitely battles all throughout. Let's take a look at P1 and 2. Richard Wishon currently leading the race with Logan Key about a gap of 1.7 seconds, with Nathan Nickerson closely following Logan. A little further back, we have Jacob Elliott here in the Porsche with Brandon Dooley and Kevin Desnoyers all over his bumper. Kevin gets any closer, he will be inside that car. There we go. As they go through the Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel complex here. Or Maggots and Beckett's. Chapel's on the other side of the track. I am with it today. I'm with it. All right. Then we have Gray Welch P7 after all the chaos. Gab Chavez in the McLaren P8 with Rich Hibbs making up a ton of spots up to P9, and Nathan Walter in the Mercedes also making up a ton of positions rather. Everybody spreading out just a little bit as the drivers come to grip with our wet weather conditions here. Alright, as they wrap up the run down the Wellington Straight here, things have definitely settled down. But Logan Key definitely under threat. Nathan Nickerson about 7/10 back, who has Jacob Elliott about 7/10 back, and then Kevin Desnoyers right up the bum here of Jacob Elliott. Gonna ride on board with these guys for a little while. And these conditions so challenging here. Everybody definitely trying to tiptoe through there, but seeing a significant amount of movement from these cars. Oh, and Jacob Elliott going into the pit. I wonder what the strategy is there. I don't see any contact or damage. And it certainly looks way too wet for slicks, but maybe Jacob knows something that we all don't know. This allows Kevin to get right behind Nathan, and indeed looks like he is going to try to get that P3 spot. Currently going side by side with Nathan here. Kevin with the inside line should have a little bit more traction until he crosses over the racing line here. Yep, and that racing line being a little bit more slick has allowed the Porsche of Nathan Nickerson to get a little bit of a run. Now Nathan on the racing line. These guys putting on a bit of a wet weather show here, going side by side. Good clean racing, certainly better than the Mexican Grand Prix that was on earlier. Everybody being nice and respectful here. Nathan thinking about having a look on the inside. Oh my goodness, going through, thinking about taking it from Kevin Desnoyers through Cops. That is definitely bold. Now through Maggots and Beckett's. Kevin looking like he has a little bit more traction. Opening up a bit of a gap here now on Nathan. That was some excellent racing. Kevin now picking his way through some back markers.
Sorry about that, Adam. Just trying to recover without binning it.
Oh, you're good.
And I see clear skies and sunshine. I think it may not be long before this wet weather actually stops.
God, those corners are difficult.
Looking a little further back, Rich Hibbs trying to make the move on Gray Welch in the BMW.
Corner on this track is difficult.
Rich staying well clear of that racing line, which should have quite a bit more grip offline. Now going side by side with Gray. Gray having a bit of a moment, which also allowed Jacob Elliott a little bit of a run in the Porsche. The racing line, the traditional dry line, is where a lot of rubber accumulates, which is nice and grippy when the track is dry, but when wet, that rubber is super slippery. And so you'll often find that if you keep your car off the traditional racing line, you will have more grip in these wet conditions. Jacob Elliott following Rich Hibbs here on a charge back up the order. After a little confusion at the start, he is definitely recovered pretty well here. I see something has happened to Doug Wright. Let's see if we can hop aboard Doug, see what happened. Doug in the Corvette here. And just losing the rear end a little bit. No harm, no foul, no damage, most importantly. Back aboard Jacob. He's maintaining that gap with Richard Hibbs, about 7/10. Porsche seems to be very well planted here in the wet conditions. And hold the phone. We have a change for the lead. Looks like Kevin Desnoyers takes the lead from Richard Wishon. Both drivers in mid-engine cars, but Kevin Desnoyers is driving this McLaren like he stole it. By far the fastest man on track right now, setting a 2:16.3 last lap. My goodness. Putting on a clinic right now of how to drive these cars through the wet. That 2:16.3 over 2 seconds faster than the next fastest lap time. And that is where that 7,871 I rating comes from, folks. It is not just a number.
Yeehaw.
There is some skill that comes with it. And this is going to allow Richard Wishon to begin to fall prey to Logan Key a little bit. Logan Key setting nearly identical lap times as Richard, but the last 2 laps has set personal best sectors 1, 2, and 5 on a little bit of a charge here. And Kevin still cranking on the speed. Just set the fastest sector 1 of all. Although, as I say this,
Crappy up until then.
Jacob Elliott in the Porsche chasing down Rich Hibbs set the fastest second sector of all. Until Kevin just took that by over a second. Kevin flying in the McLaren. As we have a little bit of break in the action, something has happened to Doug Wright, I heard over the radio. As we go through Maggots and then Beckett's, just going to catch a fistful of oversteer and is now a passenger. Looks like he gave the wall a little bit of a love tap, but should be fine. Yeah, car doesn't look bad at all. Should be good to go. Back up front, Jacob Elliott. Reeling Rich Hibbs back in again. Gap back down to 7/10. Rich flashing his lights at some lap cars, letting him know that he is coming through. And Rich still has to check up, which causes Jacob Elliott to have to throw down the anchors as well. Was able to get it stopped safely, but that was a nice four-wheel drift coming from Jacob. Gearing on rather to go around Club Corner here. This one is all about being as brave as you can with the accelerator.
Playback of that run, Kevin.
And that is gonna do it. Whew. Kevin Desnoyers coming from 18. That's right. 18 positions back to take P1. Congrats, Kevin. Again, putting on a clinic. About 2 seconds faster a lap. Super, super impressive. After Kevin, Richard Wishawn's going to take P2 with Logan Key in P3. Nathan Nickerson is going to take P4 with Brandon Dooley in P5. Rich Hibbs with the P6.
Wow, that was fun.
Jacob Elliott with the P7. Gab Chavez in P8 with Nathan Walter P9. And Gray Welch rounding out our top 10 in the
That's
BMW.
the word for it.
Whew. Well, a lot has happened there, so much that I
Start now.
almost missed the checker flag. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and we will be back in about 5 minutes' time.
shit. Something smart. I don't know what I'm gonna see, but it looks amusing. I'm guessing.
Sounds like you got all the green skins behind you.
Things going on back there.
It was the same party as this morning in our birds race.
Went all day, non-stop.
That's how we sound on this.
Very faint.
Turnaround time to get the car. Pit stop should be required. And again, green flag is on the leader. Even if that is post green flag, you wait for the leader.
All right, we are starting to trickle back. About 25 seconds to go as we grid up here. And conditions have certainly changed. It looks like the rain has stopped.
A question there.
And we are gonna kick off.
This may dry out pretty quick. We'll see.
This will be an interesting session. I see, unfortunately, it looks like maybe 2 drivers are not starting this one, but we still have 17 on the grid, and strategery is going to come into the fold here because we are going to be on a rapidly drying track. And away we go. And this one appears to be a little bit more of a clean getaway than last race. Oof. As these guys are still fighting for traction. Will be a drying track, but it is not going to dry out instantly. Now we have 17 cars over 40 minutes to drive it out. Dry it out, rather.
Sorry, Brandon.
As Brandon appears to have gotten his bell rung. Let's see what's going on with Brandon. On the racing line there, and just gets a little bit of help from the BMW that drifted wide a little bit from that line. That racing line that the BMW on, again, super slippery, and especially with cold rain tires, these cars will slide around a ton on that wet line. Back to live action, and we have battles all over the place. Right now we're riding aboard Jacob Elliott, who has a fierce 3-way battle ahead of him for P3. Currently, Logan Key occupies that spot with Nathan Nickerson and Rich Hibbs right on the heels, and Jacob Elliott and Nathan Walter joining in this party as well. Oh my goodness. And the Porsche of Nathan pushing Logan through. Some impressive stuff, as it looks like Jacob Elliott in the Porsche got the move done on Rich Hibbs. I'm going to ride on board here because Nathan trying... Oh, and we're going to have a little bit of a pileup here. I am actually shocked that that was not worse than it was there. Logan Key in that McLaren, unfortunately losing traction and spinning around, which collected Nathan in the Porsche. These guys definitely not giving an inch when it comes to track position at the moment. Oh, as something happens to Greg Proch now in the Mustang and goes for a ride. Oof. Big impact. Definitely has some damage there. Unfortunately, did not see the beginning of it. And we're going to go back. Ah, and he just gets into that paint on the runoff. And that paint is like ice. If the racing line where the rubber has been laid down is slippery, then those painted curbs are like ice. Unfortunately, Greg just a passenger there once he touched it. Rich Hibbs still in the battle here for P3, chasing down Jacob Elliott. Right now, Richard and Jacob trading best sectors. Let's see how this one pans out. Looking a little further back, we have Nathan Nickerson in the blue Porsche, followed by Nathan Walter, Ricky Renner, and Philip Scott, all in our battle for the top 5. Whoa. Got a whole lot of moves happening behind. And it looks like Nathan briefly took that P6 from Ricky, and Ricky said, I don't think so, and took the position right back. Some excellent stuff. These drivers, again, having to contend with where to place their car to get the best run on the driver they're trying to pass. Anytime they touch that racing line, they're going to lose a little bit of momentum. Oh no, and Logan Key has had a moment here. Logan Key in P11. And the McLaren goes for the inside here on the racing line. And just gets a little bit into the Porsche head. Let's see that one more time from our chase cam. Maybe. And he tries to hold it, but that is a decreasing radius turn, so it's always going to get tighter. Logan gets it spun back around. It is not all over, folks, though. These guys having some tough times out there in the rain, but again, this track is going to continue to dry out, and that is going to seriously change the paradigm of this race. Oh no, and Nathan Walter in the Mercedes just getting a wee bit of a spin there. Let's see if we can catch that. Yep, just getting around a little bit, but no contact. And he should be able to get away without much more issue. Meanwhile, Ricky Renner and Nathan Nickerson closer than ever now. Oh. Ooh. Let's check out what happened there. And it's the same, well, not quite the same thing that happened to Logan, but unfortunately just getting into the back of Nathan, causing that Porsche to want to go around on him. Shouldn't be too much damage, but as I'm looking through the order, something has happened to Richard Wishon. Let's hop aboard with Richard. Ah, and Richard getting onto that painted surface, and again, just a passenger at that stage. In these wet conditions, you gotta avoid those painted surfaces. They are not your friends. And now I'm just seeing crashes everywhere. What is going on? I'm still showing these drivers on wets that were spinning in the background, so I don't think a tire choice is involved. Let's see what happened to Doug. Yeah, just losing around cops. Cops a little tough out there, and there's Todd Swartz. Todd looks like suffered a similar fate. And now everybody's spacing out just a little bit. Ooh, as we have some action here with Christian Ortiz and Tyler Hessling here. Porsche on Porsche action, about half a second apart. Yeah, it looks like Christian will start to pull away just a little bit here. Christian now eyeing up Gab Chavez. Gab in the 729 McLaren here, staying well off that racing line. And Gab is aware of what's up when it comes to the racing line treachery. All the drivers keeping it tidy through Vale as we approach Club here to go down the start-finish straight. Looking a little ahead, Ricky Renner trying to keep that P4 as Nathan Nickerson slowly but surely is reeling him in. And these guys now just taking Chapel here so gingerly, trying to keep the car pointed the correct direction. My goodness, we have, unfortunately, more bad news, which I will get to. I see 3 different crashes, but I'm going to jump on board with Christian. Christian in the number 20 Porsche here, as Tyler, Christian, and Gab all fighting over who's going to have that P8. As we approach Cops Corner, everybody being patient through here, using as much track as they dare. Tyler Hesselink back there being super brave, using the curbing. And now it's going to be all about who can find the most grip as we go through Maggots and Beckett's here. Christian looks like the big loser on that exchange, just sliding a little bit through there, and that has allowed Tyler to get right on the bumper. And Gab and P8, I'm sure, loving this. This gave Gab a little bit of a reprieve here. I like it. Christian kept his head down and was just focusing on what's ahead. Oh, but that doesn't matter, as the number 52 of Tyler trying to force his way through there. Not going to work out this time, though. Tyler, a little bit of a loser on the exchange through club, just could not get the power down. That's okay. Tyler is not giving up and says, Christian, I want that spot. Excellent battle from these two. It's aggressive but fair so far. Tyler fancying a move initially and backed out of it. Being nice and patient here through Brooklands and now through Luffield. Just staying off that racing line with the left side tires. Gab, though, Christian found an excellent bit of traction through there. Was able to open the gap up a little bit to almost half a second. But Tyler has this, my goodness, this cop section figured out, because he gained almost all the time he lost back. Now through Maggots and Beckett's again. We'll see how Christian makes it through this time. Excellent stuff from these two. Oh, and a car spins ahead. Both these guys able to make it through just fine. Looks like that was Tyler Hesselink. No. Who was that? That was Gab Chavez in the McLaren. And bad luck for Gab. Looks like he was able to get it going again, though. Tyler is just not letting Christian go. This is awesome. So we take another trip here through the Wellington Strait. And we are starting to see lap times tumble here as these two approach a slow-moving car. Starting to see times in the 15s. In fact, P2 set a 14.8. Jacob Elliott showing that he is certainly comfortable in the rain, setting a 14.84. Alright, as we have a little bit of a break in the action, yeah, take a look at some events we missed. I see Nathan Walter crashed. Nathan in the Mercedes. Going through Beckett's on the way to Chapel here and just losing the rear end of the Mercedes. Scoops it back up, gets going on his way. Doug Wright having some issues as well. Also looks like it's going to be from Beckett's to Chapel. Yep, just that racing line coming out of Chapel, leaving that car sliding. Then we're going to take a look at Logan. Logan Key in the McLaren as we approach, looks like Vale Corner. Yep, and just losing the rear end going into Vale. I suspect what's happening to a lot of these drivers who are losing the rear end under braking is they have the brake bias pushed as far back as they can to avoid a front lockup. But when you transition to the apex on these slower speed corners, you're going over the racing line, and that's going to be a lower traction area, meaning your brake bias may not be in a good spot. Ricky Renner also having a bit of a moment. Let's take a look at Ricky. Ricky in the Porsche here, going through Beckett's, and also losing the rear end. Gets it spun back around with style and back under his way. Gab Chavez in the McLaren. And I believe we saw a little teaser of this while watching the battle with Christian Ortiz and Tyler Hessling. Again, losing the rear end there. And then Greg Prochnow also having a moment. Still hasn't gotten that Mustang fixed yet. It's a champ. Oh, and again, touches the painted line there on the curbing and just is not able to keep the car pointed where he wants. All the painted lines are like ice, and these guys are finding out that it is most certainly a challenge to keep the car going where you want when you hit these painted lines. Back up front, P8 Christian Ortiz in the battle with Tyler Hessling rather is cooled down just a little bit. Tyler now 3 seconds back. Leaving me, as I look at our gaps, without anybody to talk about at the moment. So let's hop up front with Kevin in the McLaren. Looks like Kevin's getting onto the Wellington straight here, approaching Brooklands, and has just put on a clinic in the sprint and continues that momentum in the feature. Right now lapping approximately in the 115, 116 range. And is one of very few drivers right now without any incident points. Looking at P2, Jacob Elliott slowly reeling in Kevin a little bit. Jacob setting the fastest lap of the session so far. Has not been able to best his 14.8, but finding a way through these wet conditions with significant speed. Last lap a 16.2, only 1/10 behind Kevin. We're going to follow him as the race progresses. He's got about a 5-second gap from Kevin. Looking to P3, we have Rich Hibbs in the Corvette. Rich also, if my software can be believed, was 0 incident points. Definitely keeping it clean out there and fast. Rich, last lap, 15.8. Definitely in the upper end of wet weather pace at the moment. And then 12 seconds, 13 seconds behind Rich, we have Nathan Nickerson in the number 32 Porsche, trying to retain that 4th position from Philip Scott, who is only 1.1 seconds back, and Philip is charging ahead. Philip starting to get into the groove and is setting personal bests. Has the gap down to about 0.9 of a second. Nathan doing all he can to keep that car going as quickly as possible. Nathan carrying a little bit of damage from earlier contact. Doing a pretty good job here. Ricky Renner, right behind Philip Scott, starting to reel him in as well. So soon it looks like we are going to have a 3-way battle for P4. While these guys are slowly reeling each other in, we're going to keep going down the field. We have Richard Wishon in the Audi, also carrying some significant damage, waiting for the best time to come in within the pit window. And with a 40-minute session in these wet conditions, I wonder if some of these guys are just trying to wait as long as possible to see if there's a dry changeover. So far, I see a little bit of a dry line forming, but we are definitely nowhere near dry conditions 25 minutes into the race session. Christian Ortiz in the number 20 Porsche, still cruising along with Tyler Hessling, trying to reel him back in, about 2.5 seconds behind. Running out our top 10, Gab Chavez in that McLaren. Trying to keep it pointed the right direction. Had a bit of a moment earlier, but does not seem to have phased him. Yep, there's definitely a dry line in some places here. Still a ton of spray coming up though. And we'll know once we're getting close to dry tires, because the spray coming off the back of these cars will reduce significantly. And the $1,000,000 question when all these guys pit is, do I take another, or do I keep my set of wets rather, or do I take a gamble and put it over to dry tires? That tire change will take a little bit of time. It's about 10 to 12 seconds if memory serves. And with about 15 minutes remaining, not sure if it's going to be worth it in the current track conditions. Taking a look further ahead at our battle for 4th, everybody's just trying to tactically get through these wet conditions, I'm starting to see a lot of variability in the time charts, which to me says that as these wet tires wear, that they're starting to struggle to remove the water from the contact patch. Ricky Renner going into the pits. Real curious what Ricky ends up going with. In fact, we're going to take a peek. Does Ricky take tires? Well, that's going to be tough to tell from this angle. I don't think he is. Yeah, I think Ricky and the car... Oh, well, he dropped down. Maybe he did take tires. You know what? We're going to ride aboard. I see a blue stripe on the side of the car. I'm pretty sure that's a wet tire. No. Yes. That is the wet tire, but Nathan in the Mercedes, looks like Nathan went on to dries. Let's watch Nathan leave the pit here. Well, no, that's a blue sidewall tire too, so it's making me wonder if Ricky is also on dry. Oh, and that is what a dry tire looks like in the wet. And Nathan Walker says, nope, we're not doing that yet. And surprise, surprise, Tire Hessling has caught Christian Ortiz, currently 3/10 behind Christian. And I don't see any events on my lap chart here, so not sure if Christian had a moment, but that is not going to stop Tyler from charging through, and Christian going into the pits. And we have a lot of cars in the pits, but I don't see anybody else gambling on tires yet. Everybody is staying on the wets. I think at this stage that is probably the right call. Just splash and go. And as we go through our pit exchanges, this is going to change up the order a little bit. Whoa, as Logan Key has a little bit of a moment. Christian making it through without contact. And as I look at the charts, all the top 5 appears to still be out, but as I say that, Jacob Elliott and Rich Hibbs looks like they're going to both take a dive into the pit lane. Nathan Nickerson also going into the pits. pretty much the entire top 6 except for Kevin. We have Philip Scott coming around. Philip has already been in the pits, and I wonder where he is going to be released. And it looks like Philip Scott will enter, or rather, fall into line right behind Nathan Nickerson, who is leaving the track on, or leaving the pits rather, on a little cooler tires. But looks like he's able to get that Porsche up to speed pretty quickly. Kevin Desnoyer is able to stay out some additional laps, still has not pit. Rich Hibbs going to be P2 at the moment as he gets a little bit loose going through cops, going way off track. Was able to get it collected. Rich has Jacob Elliott trying to chase him down. Behind him, Nathan Nickerson still ahead of Philip Scott, but Phil is not letting him get away. And then behind these guys, we have Gab Chavez in the McLaren, leading Richard Wishon and Ricky Renner. Looking a little further back, Christian Ortiz is able to get through the pit cycle ahead of Tyler Hessling to round out our top 10. Now, as all this goes on, Philip Scott and Nathan Nickerson are going at it. We're going to ride with them for a little bit. As we tick over about 5 minutes to go. Philip having a look, but thinking better of it. And Phil just backing off a little bit here. Oh, and as we look up front, Richard Hibbs and Jacob Elliott tussling to see who is going to get that P2. Richard on that racing line, but Jacob Elliott getting a boatload of understeer there. As we fly down here to Cops. Oh my gosh, are we going to go side by side? Yes we are. Oh my gosh. These guys going so close together. Richard is not going to just give that position away. Wow, wow, wow. That was intense. As Jacob Elliott asking the Corvette ahead to get out of the way because these two are going at it and he does not want Rich to get any closer. Well, and we have some potential drama behind. Maybe. Take a look, see what happened here. Oh yeah, this is just pit exchanges. Thank you. My data and analytics here leading me on a wild goose chase. And Jacob Elliott just opening up that gap a little bit. Uh-oh, and Greg Crotch now, I think, has had another moment. Whoa. And that is unfortunate because I think he had just gotten the Mustang fixed. Yep, and yeah, that run from Club. Again, trying to get down as much power as possible, and the Mustang unfortunately chose to bite. And it looks like we do have runners on dry tires. Ricky Renner out there on dries, but they are just not working for him right now as he slides around. Last lap looks like a 3:03, but that could have also included leaving the pits, so we'll keep an eye on Ricky, but certainly looks quite slippery out there for him. And as all this is going on, Gray Welch and Todd Swartz going at it. Uh-oh, and Gray parking it on the outside there for some reason. And Todd going around. My goodness, but keeping it going the right direction. And Gray is going to take the position. Oh. Or not. Now we're just going to drag race. Alright, and uh-oh. Something has happened to Rich Hibbs. This looks like we're going through maggots and Beckett's here. And just a little bit of spin. Rich is able to get it back going again. And I actually don't think that's maggots and Beckett's. That, yep, that was through Abbey into Farm. But no harm, no foul. Rich still in P3. That is not Rich, though. Let's try that again. Taking a look a little further back, Philip Scott still trying to reel in Nathan Nickerson, not letting him go. It's about 3/10 back. And as these guys are going at it, that is the checkered flag. Kevin Desnoyers will take the P1. And 12 seconds behind, we have Jacob Elliott. But we're going to stay on board with these guys just in case any magic happens here as we approach the last few corners. And Nathan Nickerson dives into the pits. I am a little confused about that one. And Nathan Nickerson gets P3 in the pits.
Yeah.
That
Nickerson is not going to keep P3.
That was interesting.
Okay.
He went into the pits to cut the last corner.
And Rich Hibbs confirming my theory on that one. as we take a look at Richard Wishon P6, Christian Ortiz in P7, Tyler Hessling will finish P8, Gab Chavez P9, and Logan Key is going to round out our top 10. Well, that certainly was a chaotic race, as we thought it would be.
We're done at the end of that.
But overall, these guys
Yeah,
putting
my
on a
bikes were
heck of a
setting at, like,
show.
210 degrees.
19 drivers in a wet track is certainly not an easy feat, let alone with this kind of skill spread, and everybody looks like for the most part was able to get along, which we most certainly appreciate. Well, I'm going to throw up the results on the board, but I think that is going to do it for us here at Dark Helmet Racing League at this installment of the Sunday GTD Challenge. Thankfully, not all races are going to be wet races, and I believe in our 9-race season there is only 2, so that is one off the books. Next week is going to be at the Red Bull Ring, one of my favorite tracks, and it will be a dry race, so I expect some tough battles there. Red Bull Ring, an excellent track, but certainly difficult at times to pass, so we'll see how the grid is able to handle that. Anyway, my name is Morgan, and this channel is the Clean Beamer Sim Sports channel. I appreciate you all for joining, and look forward to seeing you next time.
What?